Bob's mate,
How we going?
how are you?
Yeah, we're right.
That's good. What's been happening?
A lot in the midst of it,
Yeah,
building a few apps. It's Friday, so
yeah,
got a lot of things sorted this week.
that's great.
Yeah.
That's solid, man. And for those who aren't aware, you're a full stack developer,
Yep.
or getting towards full stack developer.
Certainly trying.
Certainly trying.
Yeah.
That's what I like to hear. Run us through what are you doing on a day to day here at Moonward?
At the moment, I'm focusing pretty high on front end at the moment, with the sort of eye to get towards back end at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, deep in a few apps. We've got some deliverables coming up, which is good, and
It's nice.
pressure's on, which is nice.
Yeah.
Keep
that's
everyone
good.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah, just sort of enjoying life in the tech world.
In the fast lane.
Yeah.
You've got an interesting story, man. You're not necessarily, you haven't taken the same pathway that the majority of people have taken.
Definitely not.
Tell us a little bit about the tech side of things and how it all started for Bobby.
I've always been pretty interested in like general computing, but and I have somewhat I did a study in cybersecurity at one point, so I was sort
That's
of
so random, mate.
Yeah.
I love that. Though.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, so I've always been interested in it, but worked in I'm a musician and worked in hospitality as well, like running music venues and whatnot. So
Yeah.
it's been a side interest, but never sort of dived in.
Yeah.
And yeah, another Moonward worker, Anthony, is one of my good mates. We actually play music together. We have for a long time, and he sort of coaxed me into the app development side of tech, and
Yeah.
he said I think you'd enjoy it, and so far I have been.
Solid.
Yeah.
So, take me back. Finished high school.
Yep.
What happened after that? Did you finish high school?
I did.
You went all the way through?
I did.
Yeah?
I did. Much to my teacher's chagrin.
Oh, really?
No. I finished high school. I moved to Byron Bay from Newcastle, where I'm originally from. But I moved
lovely.
to Byron.
Is that where you were like, I'm going to Byron, I'm going to find myself?
Yeah, that definitely didn't happen. But I actually moved to study. So
really?
I went to uni there. It was when
Yeah.
I first picked up my music degree.
So there's a university in Byron Bay?
It's in Lismore, but
Yeah, right.
honestly, people just never know that. So I just sort of default to Byron, Ballina kind of area. But I did that for a while, and then I didn't finish that course because if people do know what Lismore is, probably shouldn't talk too much bad things about it. But anyway,
Right.
I'd like to get out of there, so I
Yeah.
decided to leave, and I moved to Brisbane, and I got a job in hospitality as kind of just a stopgap situation.
Was that your first hospo job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, from then on, just sort of, I worked in hospitality for quite a long time, and then went back years later and finished my music degree at the Jazz Music Institute,
Yeah.
which is where I actually met Anthony, who
Yeah.
sort of G'd me up for the app side of things. And we started playing music together, and it's kind of a lot of the hospitality stuff that I was doing was it always seemed like a career that I was always gonna at some point bail from, but it's sort of, you sort of fall into, I enjoyed it. I'm not unhappy. It definitely gave me a lot of skills that I probably wouldn't have picked up otherwise, like talking to people and such. But it was always something that I wanted to leave in the rear view mirror at some point.
For
And
sure.
yeah.
And when you say hospo, are we talking bars, restaurants? What were you up to?
Yeah, a bit of everything, to be honest. Towards the end of my hospo career, I was at the Triffid, which some people might know. It's a live music venue in Brisbane. And that was pretty good. It was sort of tied in with a lot of the music. I could sort of have the hospitality and the music thing that I was used to doing, and that was cool. But it's sort of, there was a certain point as well, I would say, that certain world events happened, and I started to really see the you would say it, but like the tenuous nature of working in hospitality and
Yeah.
how certain events could just change everything, and you
Yeah,
may be just out of a job, or
Yeah.
you may not be able to sort of bring in the kind of money that you were looking at
Yeah.
previous to that. So
Yeah.
that was a pretty eye-opening moment, and I actually quit that job after speaking to Anthony, and just lived off my savings for a while,
Yeah.
and taught myself how to be a front-end developer,
Yeah.
or at least somewhat.
I love I don't know if love is the right word. I'm very intrigued by the hospitality space. I feel
Yep.
like whenever I see it on like someone's CV, or they've said they've gone through like a bit of hospo,
Yeah.
I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
I think hospo, you get that fast-paced nature that you don't get at a lot
Yeah.
of other jobs.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's very much a case of like, if you do the hours, like you generally get paid okay.
Yeah.
But you have to put in the work.
Mm.
And it's like a lot of like good hospo places generally have systems in place.
Yep.
And it's sort of like systems cross with pressure, because you've either got like a queue of people, or everyone's needing your attention, or you have to go at speed. I think a lot of the time, it's like baptism by fire.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you're thrown in the deep end, and you just have to like figure shit out,
Oh, absolutely.
like on the go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we've all got like, for anyone who's worked in hospital, we've all got a hospital story.
Yeah, yeah.
Like when you're on the job, shit hits the fan, and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you're like, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, we a few mates of mine, we used to joke around about how, like, you know, back in the day, some countries had like compulsory military service.
Yeah.
We used to talk about how people should have like compulsory hospo service when they
Absolutely.
finish school. Like everyone
Absolutely.
should have to do it, because
Yeah.
everyone interacts with the hospitality scene
Yeah.
to some degree
Yeah.
in their life, like pretty
Yeah.
regularly, and it's kind of
100%.
if you've been behind the bar, or you've been in that kitchen, or
Yeah.
whatever, like, I think it sort of gives you it would probably give some people a bit of pause before they act the way they do when they're in public.
Sharon won't be complaining because
Yeah,
her almond
absolutely.
latte is cold.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She knows what it used to be like. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, good luck getting that through, but I think it would be a good idea.
I agree. So, did the hospo. So, where did the cybersecurity come into things?
It was I was kind of just interested again in like, I've always been pretty into tech, and cybersecurity seemed like the most, I hate to use the word, but like cutting edge. There was sort of, there's always something new.
Yeah.
I suppose you could say the same thing about the entire tech space, but cybersecurity for some reason grabbed my attention, and there was a lot of just free like resources like Hack the Box and stuff. Like, you could just dive straight in. There wasn't any kind of barrier to starting to learn. And I did that for a little while.
Were you doing that part-time and working?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was part of the reason that it was so. It was quite hectic, because I was still working essentially full time and trying to do that. So but it was still a full time study schedule. So
Yeah, it's sort of like you're trying to chase the money and work as much as possible, but then on the other side you're like trying to learn and upskill yourself, and allocate enough time for studies and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of the reason when I decided to just straight up quit and not have a job for a little while, that was important, because doing the cybersecurity thing whilst trying to maintain a full-time job was like difficult.
You're trying to ride two horses and you only got one ass.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that was part of the reason the cybersecurity venture, and like in studying it, was a bit of a test. And I tried to do it one way, just have my cake and eat it too. And then I think I saw how that was a bit foolish, to be honest. And then that's what led me to sort of taking a bigger leap of faith and just quitting everything.
And did you like enjoy the content and the cybersecurity stuff?
Yeah, it's cool. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of crossover with app development, to be honest. It's sort of... It's sort of almost the other side of the coin. Or I guess I was into more like offensive security.
Yeah.
So trying to break into things.
Yeah, nice.
Whereas when you're developing an app, you've kind of got to have like blue team in your back of your mind of like, we actually have to defend against this. Like you can't be doing kind of...
How many barriers can we put up?
Yeah. Which is cool. Like, and to some degree, I think the red team like offensive stuff sort of helps when you're developing apps, because it's in the back of your mind of like, this is what I'd do if I was trying to break in or steal someone's data.
100%, totally. Okay, so then you came and finished up in hospo. So that was that sort of during COVID, post COVID?
It was during COVID, and
like you said, I assume the hospo scene had dried up a bit at that point.
Oh yeah, hugely so. There was like considerable months where I just wasn't working. Yeah, which is alright. Like, I'd kind of been smart enough about money that I'd survived, but it's not something you want to. No. You don't want to be doing it forever.
Exactly.
In your working years kind of situation.
Yeah.
And to be fair, everything seems to have come back relatively, maybe not completely, but it was just that, like, the realization of knowing that at some point, like, someone could just click their fingers and it's done. Yeah. That was very eye-opening to me.
Yeah, it's that sort of level of control, I guess. It's like...
Yeah, I very much felt like there was zero control.
Yeah, exactly. So you're at this point where you're not able to work because what's going on. Are you starting to sort of think about app development again at that point, or are you still like thinking of cyber, or are you just sort of chilling out and enjoying your life while you can type thing?
There was definitely like a brief moment of thinking like, oh, this is great. Yeah. I'm just chilling. Like, I felt like what I assume like a retired person would feel like after many years of work, but that kind of...
Did you have any like daily routines, for example, my grandparents, like every day without fail, rain, hail, shine, he'll go get the paper. Like, did you get into any routines or like do crosswords or anything like that?
I don't know if it was anything as cool as that. It was like usually just play the PlayStation. I started playing PlayStation again for after a long time. Yeah, right. I had time to do all those kind of, almost like return to, weirdly, it's like being retired, but also return to childhood and start playing PlayStation. I don't know. Yeah. But I mean, that ran out pretty quick though. You get very bored. You start to realize that you kind of, you're not, I don't know, at my age, I'm not supposed to be doing that. And it's very, like, present in the back of your mind of, like, this is...
There's only so many times you can take Barnsley to the Champions League.
Yeah, exactly, Yeah, not to mention the FIFA stress. Yeah. No one needs that in their lives. But, it was very much like an eye-opening moment of, okay, well, now that I'm kind of bored with just doing nothing and chilling and not having any responsibility, I got to make a decision here. Yeah. Something has to change. Yeah. So, and that's when I started to think about app development. Like, Anthony, as I said before, was a pretty big influence in that. Yeah. Because we were friends before he even had worked here. Like, I've known him for many years. And the way that he spoke about it was very, like, invigorating. It sort of made me think, shit, I wouldn't mind this. Sounds great.
For sure.
Yeah, so there was a lot of, like, obviously self-study, but then we kind of had a bit of a weekly ritual where once a week we'd get together, have a couple of beers, and he'd set me straight on some TypeScript thing or some kind of, like, Express thing. And, after a few months, I sort of felt like I had a reason, not a handle. It's, like, a bit ridiculous to say, but I felt like I was at least growing to a point where I had like measurable skills that could be actually used to do something. Yeah. Yeah.
And was there like an aha moment where you're like, oh, like shit, I could actually do this for a living?
To be honest, it was when Anthony called me one day and said, I've thrown your name in the ring, mate, for a job. And I was like...
Are you serious?
Yeah, I remember just saying, you're joking. Like, you're joking. I can't do this. But then he sort of, he's considerably more experienced than me. And ultimately his judgment, I sort of come down to, I was like, well, he did it, so, and I trust his judgment, so I need to get over the imposter syndrome situation and just dive in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then, so at that point, I'm assuming, like, fast forward like a couple of weeks or a month, you did the intern at
Yep.
Moonward, the internship. How did you find that? Like jumping in and actually having like a team of developers around you?
Yeah, it was great. It was kind of it was a good, maybe I would say like acclimatization period of sort of, especially because this wasn't like I was walking into my 5th or 6th development job, like I had no idea what it was going to be like.
Yeah.
So to be able to do I think it was 5 weeks, it was good because you can kind of start to get a bit of a feel of what's going on, like how people interact, like what's kind of expected in the role, like what people are doing, and yeah, it was good, and I also learned a lot as well. Like I would say that 5 weeks probably, like upped my skill by like an order of magnitude at least.
Yeah.
Just from that kind of pressure cooker situation of like, all right, this is it now.
Yeah, 100%. Because like reading between the lines, you've done this a very unorthodox way.
Yeah.
Like most people finish high school, straight onto university. They'll do like a computer science degree or something like that. Then from there, they'll get some sort of internship and eventually, land on their feet somewhere at a job. Having gone through this a completely different way, essentially being self-taught and then had a mate that you catch up for, grab a beer and chat a little bit of code.
Yeah.
In that like first few weeks of the internship, did you feel like there was like any key fundamental skills that you had overlooked, and maybe a university degree would have provided you with those?
I don't know if it would be a question of skill. Like, I mean, definitely yes. Like, you can't. I don't know if there were like new categories of like I've never heard of this maybe, but I think it might be a more of a depth, rather than like a new category kind of thing. So there's probably some things that would have come up that, having spent 4 years, but then again, actually, I've never done a computer science degree, so I'm not even sure, because I suppose like web development and computer science aren't technically synonyms, so there's probably some things that wouldn't even be useful. So
Exactly.
But it's hard. It's kind of hard to say definitively without actually having done a degree like that. But yeah, there were definitely some things that I realized in the internship that, all right, you got to go and learn that.
Yeah,
that's important. Like,
yeah. And I don't know. It's weird because I find because we do a lot of internships.
Yeah.
Like whether we get someone who's come with like 3-4 years at a university, or someone like yourself who might have just been self-taught for 3-4 months, that initial internship, they usually have to go through the same barriers. Like, and I'm sure what you experienced in that 5 weeks is probably the exact same experience someone who has a degree has.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not bagging on universities.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
I just feel like there's always that difference between education where there's no real, like, apart from, I don't know, an assignment deadline, there's no real like pressure to actually deliver as such.
Yeah.
Whereas as soon as you're just like chucked into a different environment, like, just, I don't know, it's almost like the light goes on.
Yeah.
You're like, oh fuck, this is real now.
There's definitely a sink or swim.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. And I don't know, maybe it's tech specific in the sense that the skills or just the information that you're supposed to know is pretty malleable. It's always being updated, like almost like 6 monthly.
Yeah.
So maybe that sort of over indexes for that skill of being able to perform under like new pressure and just go, okay, this is a new thing, like I need to be able to take it in and spit it back out correctly, like as far as understanding goes.
Yeah.
So I think maybe the tech industry in itself might not kind of play into the university structure as much as maybe some other things.
Yeah.
Because you're learning from people who I don't know, it's almost like a closed system where if you go from uni and then you eventually become a university teacher,
Yeah.
you're like, they don't really, I would assume, if you haven't ever been in the industry that you're supposedly training people to go into, what can you tell them about that industry? It's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of speculation. I haven't done it before. But I would imagine that I've noticed that tech chooses, or sort of over-indexes, like I said before, it chooses for the ability to adapt and move forward quickly.
Yeah, you have to want it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're exactly right. I think there's like it's almost like your knowledge compounds based on your want, if that makes sense. How much you want to continue to learn and educate yourself and figure things out and go beyond like the norm 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Your sort of like tech knowledge and your success in this sort of like tech bubble compounds compared to someone who just wants to go like 9 to 5, by the book, etc., etc.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think maybe the cybersecurity sort of background that I had as well, like of all the tech things, even that in itself is like when you're talking about 0-day exploits, and you have to be, if you have got the best defense kind of set up 3 months ago, it's not good enough. Like,
exactly.
You always having to sort of react. So maybe that helped. That was not a pun on react. By the way. Sorry.
Stop it. Yeah. No, that's cool. So it was 5 weeks, and then straight into the deep end, being an actual developer.
Yeah.
What sort of happened there? Were you straight in leading projects, or is it a little bit of a gradual onboarding?
I would say it's gradual. There was certainly a deep end element to it, but purely just because that's what I'm doing now. Like, I'm swimming in development world, and that's where I have to learn to live now, which is, it was confronting, but it was also cool. Like, it sort of, like you were saying, it forces you to, take the rose-tinted glasses off and just like, this is it. This is what we're doing. But it's definitely sort of, everyone's been really good here of sort of, like being like, this is what's expected, but also like, there's also the element of like, people are there to help as well, which is good. So that's been really helpful. I sometimes think I've been pretty lucky in the sense like to work at a place like this where everyone's in-house, everyone gets along like incredibly well. It's almost, I don't know, I can't say because I haven't worked at other development agencies, but I think this is rare in that sense. So I've been lucky in that way.
And then, so like, tech skills aside, what are some of the like key attributes that you feel are required in order to be, I don't really like the term successful, because what does that mean? Like, to be a valued member of the team here. Like, what are some of these key attributes aside from tech skills?
Communication is obviously a big thing. Like, when you're working in a team in any capacity, communication is key, I suppose.
And I assume this like goes straight back to the hotspur days.
Yeah, well, that's something that I think, I remember talking to another friend, like outside of the business, but we were talking about the standard, or I don't know, it's probably not true, but at least the stereotypical developer is like 80% staring at a computer screen with 20% social skills. Whereas I would say like my experience has probably been the inverse of that, where most of my job has been dealing with people and like kind of keeping people happy and making sure everything's running in a smooth way, I guess. And my time in front of a computer screen has probably been that, so less than that. So it's kind of, in some ways it's good because there's definitely a communication and people skills component to this job, like working in a team. So I feel like that's something that I can draw on for myself. And it's kind of the flip where I need to time in front of screen versus time with people, and I think probably more. I don't know. Historically, developers are the other way around.
Yeah.
So just another reason of like me coming in the backwards way.
Yeah, for sure. I remember we had one of our original developers. I was having a chat to him once, and he didn't really vibe this, but I said, your communication skills will get you so much further in life than your tech skills.
Yep.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people who would disagree. But I think even if, let's say, you're trying to become a developer at Google or Amazon or Apple, like you still have to get yourself in front of someone and be able to communicate to that someone and justify why you should have that role or have that job.
Yeah, definitely.
So I still feel like communication would get you so much further than just pure skills alone. Because don't get me wrong, there's probably millions of great developers out there, and they just sit on a computer all day, but don't necessarily have the communication skills to get the job that they want, or the communication skills to work in a team and actually be a valid team member. Like that, from a technical aspect, they might be great, but they just might not be able to communicate with their team or their client or whoever it might be. Yeah,
and so much of a company's success, like if it were purely down to how good a developers you had, people would just do that, but they obviously don't. And you obviously succeed, to use that word, for different reasons. Like there are obviously other reasons, and I think the ability to communicate and sort of share just anything, ideas, even code to some degree, between people is you can't really succeed without it. Or if you do, it's way harder. It's like you're running up a hill kind of thing.
And do you, like, considering like this pathway and like you said, you're sort of the reverse of a normal developer. You've done a lot more like people skills. You've done a lot more of the non-ordinary tech stuff. Do you feel like you're part of the tech industry, or do you feel like a little bit of an outsider?
Truthfully, like a bit of an outsider, to be honest. But I think it's a pretty common concept that goes around the tech industry. Of like, there's a lot of imposter syndrome. Because I think, kind of going back to what we were saying about the constant evolution of the tech industry, I think there's never a carved out path. I mean there are, but because it's changing so much, I think people can sort of not feel comfortable that they don't have a yardstick to sort of measure what they're doing at the time against something else. So it kind of, you always feel a bit uneasy of like, am I doing this right? Is this the way? Like, are people going to be following me through this, or kind of thing? So I think that's probably inherent in a lot of tech people, but I'm give myself time. Hopefully I'll get rid of it, and eventually I'll feel part of it.
So do you think that's a confidence thing, or is it like just a skills thing, or is it like an output? Like, you've put in the work, and here's what I've got to show for it.
I mean, it's probably all of those things, to be honest, but confidence, you have to find a nice balance between confidence and skill. Because I'm very wary of, the way that I've come up through in this industry. I'm aware of it, and I'm aware of not wanting to seem too confident, but being realistic with my skills. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe it's a personality thing as well. I think there's an element of like, you don't want to have a big head kind of thing. Like maybe that's an Australian thing in general. I don't know, but I think confidence comes with skill, but ultimately skill won't come unless there's a minimum level of confidence. So you kind of have to straddle that line, I guess.
Do you believe in fake it till you make it?
That's a big question. I think I do.
Yeah.
But not at the cost of actually making it, if that makes sense. Like, if the level of faking that's going on is going to be detrimental to, I guess there's two realities that you're always working with, of like the realist versus the, like potential. And you have to decide. There's a line in between both of those things, because like constant negativity will get you nowhere, and then it sort of like it builds your reality based on that. But overconfidence can also lead to a pretty big fall as well, so you kind of have to straddle that line somehow.
And I think it comes down to environment as well. Like if you came in as an intern and were like super overly confident above your skill set, I think you would get grounded quite quickly. Like the guys would be like, shut up, man.
Absolutely.
Fuck you. Go write some tests.
Yeah, exactly. Go and clean up this code.
But so like I think that's a good thing about like putting yourself in a solid environment. Because it sort of levels you, and if you're able to read the room, which is another thing a lot of tech people might not necessarily be good at. And probably another thing, and why the hospo side of things is come back as a massive positive. Is because you've got those people skills. You can probably read the room a lot better. Like, hey, this is how they do things around here. They don't not talk, which is very standard for a normal dev team. Or they're not super overconfident, and you can sort of like find that balance that you mentioned.
Definitely.
That's cool. And then so you've been in the dev space what, 6 months, like in a real life dev environment now, 6 months?
I've only been working here for a few months now.
Really?
2 months.
Oh, wow.
2 and a bit.
Look at that.
Time
flies.
flies.
So when you came in, you obviously you painted this picture of what like a dev environment or a dev team or a software company would look like. Is there anything which is drastically different to what you had imagined?
To be honest, the kitchen here is smick.
Nice.
I did not expect the kitchen to be this nice.
That's good.
I think the thing that struck me the most is like the cohesive is not the right word, but the respect is also a lame word. I don't want to say that. There's something about there's something about this team that is like pretty non-standard, I would say, in the sense that there's no bullshit. Like no one's. It's a great environment to learn and sort of continue and flourish in. So I think that's kind of, I expected a bit more, I don't know, maybe like competitiveness or like pettiness. I don't know, something, because it's a very technical environment and people have skills that they've sort of honed, and I don't know, maybe that was like a misread on my behalf. Maybe I shouldn't have expected that, but when I got here and just sort of noticed pretty immediately, even in the internship, that everyone's kind of pulling towards the same goal. Which there's no egos. It's very everyone's pulling towards the same mission. So it actually makes it quite easy to push on, because there's there's no roadblocks of sort of meaningless stuff. It's just, we're all just pushing towards this spot. This is where we want to go. How can we do it? Let's get it done, kind of thing.
And I think because we're like still quite a relatively small team in the grand scheme of things, we don't really have room for that.
Yeah.
Because, like I mentioned before, around the environment, if someone came in and they were being petty, like they wanted to, get all of the credit for everything they do, or they didn't want to do this allocation of work because their skill set is well beyond writing tests or cleaning up someone's code or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Like we just don't have the size of team to do that.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's that combo of like you said, we've got that solid, clear vision that everyone's working towards, but it's also almost the like, I don't know, it's this weird little culture that's formed where we're just there for your mate sort of thing.
Yeah,
it's like, I know he's under the pump at the moment. How can I help him?
Yep.
Or I know this guy, he's struggling on a particular thing. Like, I'm just going to tap him on the shoulder. How can I help him?
Yep. And
I think what's cool and, in my opinion, a little bit unique is that, you might see someone's under the pump and you're like, do you want to go to the gym, or do you want to grab some lunch, or like, hey, have you had lunch today?
Yeah.
And it's sort of just goes a little bit more beyond a normal work environment.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, we're not all hanging out with each other on the weekend. That would be a bit weird. But I just definitely feel there's just something a little bit extra.
Yeah. No, definitely. I feel that too. And I think that's going to be the big challenge for Moonward when they take over the world, is to try and keep that.
Of course.
When there's 1,000 people working
for us.
Yeah.
Totally. So, you've been here 2 months now.
2 and a bit, yeah.
2 and a bit. Do you feel like you've still got the same vibe for software and tech? Or do you feel like your learning has slowed down, or your hunger has slowed down, or is it like increased, or it's been pretty solid?
It's... I don't know if I'd say my hunger has decreased. I'm definitely I'm interested in like updating skills again, because we've been talking about heaps. It's almost like you learn a skill and you feel like you're good at it, and then no one cares about that tech anymore. We're using something else.
It goes in cycles.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I guess now it's on that. So
yeah,
I'm kind of lucky. I think as people who work in the industry are lucky in that sense, that you've always got like a new challenge to sink your teeth into. So I don't think it leads itself to complacency, or maybe not as much as other industries. Yeah. But no, I'm kind of becoming more interested in like leveraging the whole my people skills and stuff, like when it comes to just client meetings and things as well, because that's stuff that comes relatively natural now. So that side of things, I almost didn't realize how useful that could be in this space. So looking for new ways to just leverage that, because it's kind of quite easy. Like, how can I make that useful to the company and stuff as well? So there's that side of things. But as far as learning and updating my skills, it's just like it's a never-ending battle that you just keep fighting, and that's kind of
touching on the communication side of things is something that's overlooked by so many developers, and the greatest example is if you have to deliver, I wouldn't even say bad news, but deliver information to a client. And whether you're in an agency environment like us, where we have external clients, or working for a tech company or a software company, you always have to deliver information, whether it's up the chain to your boss, across the chain to your co-worker, whatever it might be. And if you're able to deliver that in like a meaningful, impactful way, where you're able to get positive out of the communication, rather than just being like, hey, there's a bug, I can't fix it, like your app's broken. That's the standard. And all you need to be is like just a little bit better than the standard, and everyone thinks you're amazing.
100%.
And it's just that sort of extra level of just like a little bit of care, a little bit of empathy.
And I think eventually you can kind of build that rapport with clients that we have or whatever as well. Like, you can kind of, if bad news exists, you can't wish it away. It exists. So it's almost like, I don't know, like grandma used to always say, like, a stitch in time saves 9, I think it is.
Yeah,
so you
right.
want to like get in there, let people know what it is, and then communicating bad news is a skill, definitely.
Yeah.
But not communicating bad news in the hope that it will just go away, and dealing with it later when you can be like when you think that for some reason it's gonna not be as big a deal, like never ever works, like
100%.
ever. Like it's always 10 times more of a shitstorm, and you wish if only I had a 7, if only I had just dealt with this at the time, like
all the time.
Yeah.
And tech, particularly software, is the worst.
Yeah.
Because you'll sweep something under the rug, and every single time I've seen this happen, 100%, it always comes back to bite you.
Yeah.
Like you might make some sort of tech decision.
Yeah.
An infrastructure decision
Yeah.
early on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it this way. Deep down, I should definitely be doing it the proper way.
Yeah.
Or I should definitely be doing this way, but I'm just gonna sweep it under the rug and hope it goes to plan.
Yeah, yeah.
And then 6 months later, the client turns around or your team member turns around and like they want to implement a new feature.
Mm.
You're like, yeah, fuck, we can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
made that decision,
Yeah.
3 months ago. And it's the same with client communication.
Mm.
If you're, having a challenge with a bug, an issue, a feature, whatever it might be,
Yeah.
rather than just being like, let's ignore this till the day it's due, and then
Mm.
we'll tell them that it's not included. It's better.
Yeah, yeah.
It's better just to be upfront. And be
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
Hey, we're having a challenge with this, because it always happens. Every single one of our projects, there's something with varying levels of severity.
Yeah.
It might just be a little bug which takes an hour to fix. It's just not ideal.
Yeah.
Or it might be a whole set of features which are super complex and is going to take add a huge amount of time onto the project.
Yeah.
It always happens.
Yeah.
And it just comes down to communication at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think you want the people who you're working with, like whether it be clients or people in your team, to be able to trust what you're saying is like the truth, not a sugar-coated version of the truth that I'm going to have to unpack and like figure out myself, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And then it actually makes for, I don't know, a more like smooth resolution of those problems, because people sort of start to learn, okay, we have a problem, but we've had problems in the past and we've fixed it.
Yeah.
We're not burying things or anything. It's kind of, it's like it's a tired analogy, but like building on a weak foundation is terrible.
Yeah.
It's a bad idea, and it's always gonna either lead to you can only ever have one story on your house because it's too dangerous otherwise, or the entire thing falls over.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. And I said it the other day to one of our guys. The back end team here at Moonward are like the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Like we can only run plays, or we can only progress forward.
Yep.
Depending on their skills.
Absolutely.
Or like their execution or their communication. Like, hey, we're running this play.
Yeah.
It all sort of, I wouldn't say relies, but they're like super pivotal.
Absolutely.
Super pivotal.
Everything flows. Well, I mean, it's like everything flows from the database to the back end to the front end. So
exactly.
If any of the links in the chain are like, weak in any capacity, like the entire set of chain feels it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And then on the skills stuff, you mentioned it before. Like, I see it as being like a cycle, whereas we're in this interesting environment because tech, it's always changing. There's always something to learn. But it's almost like the cycle that if you're just learning all the time, you'll never get to the point of actually creating.
Yeah.
So it's like the balance between learning and then honing and then performing.
Yeah.
Because you can't always just be like taking on knowledge.
Yeah.
There's so many great resources out there just to take on knowledge.
Yeah.
We could just sit on YouTube all day and learn a whole heap of new things.
Yeah.
But we would never get to the point of like honing and performing.
Yeah.
And it's how do you figure out that balance of taking on information which will be beneficial to actually executing on the day-to-day versus just learning all the time?
It's probably like if I bash my head up against a problem for a little while and I don't solve it, or someone has to sort of like impart some wisdom and then it gets solved, and then I bash my head up against it again and it doesn't work the second time, I'm like, I need to learn this.
Yeah.
Because this has slowed me down twice now, and it clearly hasn't stuck, or this is a part of my like knowledge tree that needs fleshing out, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So it's usually, for me at least, if it annoys me more than once, then I'm like, well, I guess I need to go and learn it.
Yeah, it keeps prodding you.
Yeah, it's sort of constantly showing me a sign in my face of like, you're an idiot. Learn this. And it's like, all right, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's true though. You're right. Like, I don't know. We both love our sports analogies, but it's like you can spend your entire life like training to play rugby, and if you never play a game, what's the point?
Exactly.
What's the actual point of playing? If you're just this mythical, or like a bedroom guitarist.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of. Sorry for all the bedroom guitar players out there. Take it easy.
Yeah.
No, it's true though.
But and it's you learn, you get the biggest lessons or the biggest challenges thrown at you when you're performing on stage.
Yeah.
Like, from a code perspective, you'll probably learn the most when you're writing a project, or you'll learn the most if you're a performer when you're on stage and the band isn't in sync, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, definitely.
Likewise with the rugby analogy.
Yeah.
Like, you can train all the time, but it's not until you get smashed in a tackle, you can't breathe, and then the number 10's yelling at you to do something, you're like, oh yeah, fuck, I need to learn this.
Yeah. Shouldn't have had those 4 beers last night before the game.
100%. So, what's next for Bobby?
I mean, a lot of just continuing doing what I'm doing, plus adding some sort of more of the people skill stuff that I was talking about, getting in more meetings.
Yeah.
Sort of starting to learn, like in a deeper way, the ins and outs of how things happen, and all those little kind of 1% things that aren't in your kind of like job description as far as like the contract you sign, but are entirely important to success of the business. So, but that's something that just comes with sort of being in the business for a while and like figuring out how things work, and sort of, I've always been pretty interested in like, human systems, how humans interact, and sort of being able to make like first principles sort of inferences on that, and then learning how to make it better kind of thing. And so it's something I'm interested in.
Totally. And let's say hypothetically, 12 months time, we ended your development career. Like you're finishing development in 12 months. What would you have hoped to have achieved by then?
Well, hopefully a higher up version of that job in the company. Because if you're kicking me out, I want to go up. Honestly, I'd like to be able to bridge the gap between the confidence and skill thing that we were talking about before. Like have a more concrete sense of what is reasonable to consider accurate for me in that space. To be able to get to a point of someone's in trouble with some code, whatever, they need a hand with something, to be like, I'm your guy, I'll sort it out. I can help you. I feel like that's where I want to work towards. If I can say after 12 months that I can be that guy, then I'll consider that, I've achieved something.
And do you think code or tech in general has changed you as a person? It's a big question.
Yeah, it has. It definitely has. I was talking to a buddy of mine at the pub the other day who has worked in. He's worked in bars before, and we were talking about it's almost like a suit that you have to wear when you're in hospitality, like the cynicism suit, to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And I think if you work in hospitality for long enough, there's times where you could forget to take the suit off.
Yeah.
And it starts to be the suit that you live in for your life.
100%.
And
just becomes a second skin.
yeah. And being like working at Moonward and being in the team and seeing other ways of like coping and living in life, it's definitely changed me. I'm considerably less cynical.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
I think anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have thought, you know, oh, you changed, man, but it's considerably for the better. So yeah, that's definitely been something that's changed. I don't plan on putting the cynicism suit, pulling it out of the drawer for any time soon.
Yeah. That's cool. And do you still find time to do like the stuff that you'd previously enjoyed, like playing music or hanging out with your mates and whatnot?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, just purely the 9 to 5, like having a structured work week. You don't get that in hospitality ever.
Yeah.
It's whatever's happening.
Yeah.
It's like you kind of mold around that. So that in itself has been good in just establishing a bit of routine and being able to actually see my friends on the weekend if I feel like it.
Anthony said the same thing. I was like, you know, how are you enjoying it? And he was like, the biggest thing is structure.
Yep.
Like music space, the hospo space, there's sort of structure, but there isn't really structure.
It's
just
like
work
ordered chaos.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you're sort of dragged around in all different directions. So yeah, I can definitely see the structured side of things and how that could be beneficial.
Being on the other side of the bar on a Saturday night is would recommend.
In many ways.
Yeah.
Cool, man. And then finally, we sort of touched on it before. So now you've been in this space for a while. What do you think is the biggest misconception that people from the outside looking in might have on the tech space or a software company?
That's a good question. I think a lot of people who don't have any experience in tech probably view the space as a bit alien, to be honest. Like, it's almost, I can't remember who said the quote, but it's like anything that humans can't sufficiently understand is like akin to magic, basically. So I think it's not magic.
Yeah.
It's like, I guess you could say there's metaphorical magic going on in some capacity, but you know, I think a lot of people would be shocked to see how normal people are, rather than sort of, you know, wizard aliens who are coming to steal your data, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a sort of like there's a human element to it that I think a lot of people probably wouldn't immediately identify. They think like, oh, what's going on over here? This is a crazy world. I don't understand. I don't get it. But there's a lot of just, it's good relationships, trust. A lot of that stuff is integral, and I think a lot of people probably wouldn't think that that's high on the priority list. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, we call it human development.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's like ironic, but that's what it is. In order to be in our opinion, in order to have a good tech team or a good dev team, like, it's people first. You have to be great people, and you're exactly right. I think there is that super misconception, whether it's media driven or like, you know, you see the geek in the movie who's like, you know, coding away, cracking
Cheeto
like
fingers.
People just everyone.
Make sure I haven't got out.
I did have some burger rings the other day. Yeah, everyone paints a picture of like these guys are all, you know, sitting in their mum's basement
Yep.
in their boxes,
Yep.
eating burger rings, writing code. But I hope we don't portray that.
Definitely not. It's in the company policy. No boxes at
Yeah.
work.
Cheetos are allowed.
Yeah. It's a compromise.
Only if you share them. Cool, thanks, man. But yeah, obviously, if you made it this far, thank you very much for tuning in. As always, give us a like, give us a subscribe. We're trying something different here at Moonward. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and obviously feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thanks, man.
No worries.
Done.
Lunchtime.
Yeah.